We're testing some things.
We are?
Yes. Yes, you were going to go get the link so you can
Oh,
share it with people.
okay. I thought you were going to do your spiel. You want
No,
me to,
no.
so because someone wrote into link on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, how can we get the link to this?"
Mhm.
And I said, "I don't know." So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm going to see
It's going
if
to be it streams on YouTube. So it's
it
if you
also
go to
streams on YouTube. That's true.
yes. So if you go to the Team W YouTube channel, you should be able to find it. Of course, there is sort of an irony here in that anyone listening to this will.
Is already on.
Mhm.
Okay, I see a link that says the Team W Live. So if I go to that link, it's a little weird because I'm watching myself live. Okay, I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to go back to the message. So, Guthrie, I think you can, let's see, hold on. Got to go to the message that I received. There we go. It's live, and now I'll reply.
Riveting
Isn't
podcast.
this? uh, okay, I think that worked.
So you, I'm going to. I should give. He might be done. I was gonna go check on my cat, but I think he's gonna go take a nap.
Okay. All right, you're going to kick us off with, I want the spiel.
No,
I
I
want,
know. But just,
I want the opening thing.
just waiting.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do it.
All right.
Hello, welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I'm here with Susan. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Guthrie. All
Do
right,
you
we did
wanna
it. We have the spiel. We're official.
kick us off?
Okay. Well, um, we 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 had talked a little bit before we went before earlier today and talked about what today's topic might be. Sometimes we decide on our topic a couple days ahead of time, sometimes just an hour or two before. This was one of those. So I don't even know how this came up, but I was just thinking about, all the people that are switching jobs. If you looked, I had made the comment to someone the other day that on my LinkedIn feed, it's mainly, oh, I'm so excited to say that my new position is, or after 7 wonderful years with this company, I'm going to be moving on.
Yes,
Uh,
7 wonderful years. You mean like after
no, no,
12 months?
no,
It,
no. Oh
my
yeah,
my
after
network's
12
a little
months,
younger. It's a lot of
it's not
you
even
know
7 years.
no.
We all know that there's a lot of people moving around, and I suppose since I'm talking to an economist, that's you, Guthrie, we could probably talk about the whole economic zeitgeist that's causing that to happen. But um, and maybe you want to do that. But I was thinking about the whole decision making process because on the from the individual's point of view, people, I know people are being recruited heavily, and there's for many people, not everyone, there's a lot of opportunities coming up. And so they're going through this thought process. Do I stay where I am? Do I switch? So that's one piece. And me, psychologist, I'm always interested in the psychology of that. And then there's the other side of it because we do consulting with teams, and we work with people who are like, I don't want to lose any. I really don't want to lose any staff. What can I do to retain the people that I have? And so there's that side, the employer side, who doesn't want to lose people, and then there's the individual side of getting interesting offers. So I just was thinking about some of the things I know about what motivates people, and I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that. I don't know, maybe from both sides. I was thinking of it more from the employer side. How can you retain the people you have that you don't want to lose, is there anything that you can do from a psychology motivational aspect to help them make the decision to stay? So anyway, that's what I thought we'd talk about today. And if any of you guys are listening in and want to join in with your thoughts or comments as we do this live on LinkedIn, please feel free to do that. So Guthrie, is that what you thought we were going to talk about?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And where do you want to start? Do you have a particular place you want to dive in?
I suppose we should start just by a little basic economics on sort of a macro level about
Hey, all
employment
right.
law.
All
And
right, go ahead,
I have
Guthrie.
taken master's levels in employment law economic courses. So I am, while not an expert, I have a little bit
You
of
have a little bit of
qualifications.
insight. Okay, go ahead.
The first is that not very many people work in the United States. It's something that those people who are working and who are have a lot of friends in the in who are working don't think about very often. So there's a number in the United States called the participation rate. Have you ever heard of the participation rate?
Maybe.
It's
The
basically what percent
percentage.
of the people in the country are participating in working,
Yeah,
participating in the labor economy would be
yeah,
another, the labor market, sorry, not labor,
yeah.
labor market. Now, people don't participate for all sorts of reasons. Maybe you're 2 years old and you're a little young to be working at, as a
Or maybe
toddler.
you're 92 years old.
Maybe you're 92 years old, then you're retired. Maybe you are a stay-at-home parent and you just don't want to work. Maybe you are disabled and on disability. Maybe you are going to school. So there are many permanent reasons why a person may or may not be in the
Permanent, you mean these are just tend to be there, not having to do with the
permanent, let's just
particular.
say multi-years with no
The,
plans to enter the workforce.
gotcha. Okay.
Whereas someone who is a student, for example, that is in theory, I guess I'll call it a medium term, or
Yeah.
at least
So
a
people might have
temporary gap in employment.
long-term gaps, or they may just have a short-term gap.
Well, yes, and well, medium term, right? I am going to school, but then after, I'm only not working because I'm in school, and once I'm done with school, then I
I'm
will enter
gonna
the
go
workforce.
work. Yeah. Okay.
Versus I am retired and I plan on never working again.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then there are short-term gaps
Yeah.
in how people works, right? So some people move and they take a pause. Some people go on maternity leave. Some people, of course, quit and get hired somewhere else.
Okay.
So there are all sorts of reasons why people are changing jobs and circumstances changing and moving and shifting and changing roles. So just even without some of the more, I don't know, I guess I'll say trendy uh, reasons why
Recent
people are,
situational factors.
yeah, which we can talk about
Yeah.
dissatisfaction and the pandemic, and there are, like I said, a whole host of reasons. But if we move just beyond that that level of analysis, and we just stick with putting that aside, people still there will be some mix in employment naturally.
By mix, you mean
People are moving around.
people
You know,
are always moving around.
people are always moving around, and so there are lots and lots and lots of uh, even if everyone was 100% happy with their job,
They still might be moving around. Although there's a
there would
lot
be
of move,
lots of moving around.
but there's a
And
lot of moving around going on now. That is true? That has been documented.
and by the way, just to give you a sense, in the United States, the labor participation rate is in the 60s, sort of in the
Is that low or is that
60%.
high?
It just is.
I mean, is that lower than it's been or higher than it's been
It's a
recently?
little lower than it's been.
Okay.
There's another economic indicator called which is participation for 25 to I think it's 64-year
Yeah,
olds,
kind of the
which would
prime
be
working
which is
area.
considered prime employment
Yeah.
age, and that that particular metric is maybe a better sort of indicator.
And do you know what that is right now in the US?
Yeah, that's in the 90s.
Oh,
It kind of
wow.
varies,
Okay.
upper 80s,
Okay.
lower 90s.
So I
Obviously, the pandemic has led to a dip. There are other reasons that have dipped. Millennials, in particular, have had some trouble ever since the Great Recession, where some people, when that happened, when the Great Recession hit, they fell out of the workplace and they just never recovered.
they're having a hard time getting
And it
in at
was
all.
growing, ever since 2008. It was growing, it was growing, it was growing, and it was almost sort of back to where it was, and then there was the pandemic, and so yeah, it's possible some people may have dropped out of the workforce and will never re-enter.
All right, I have a question for you. This thing that we're seeing of a lot of moving around, you know, quitting. Let's focus in on. I would like to focus in on
Yeah,
for a bit the people
you
who
can lead
are
us.
not just leaving and not coming back in, but the people who are just switching jobs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we're seeing a lot of that going on. Is
Mm-hmm.
that a U.S. centric thing, or is that
Well,
happening worldwide, or
you're
what's your
you're
sense of
getting
that?
you're getting towards perhaps the edge of
of of
what
your
I know.
current what you're currently on. I just wondered, but I mean, we know it's true in the U.S. Maybe if people are listening, they could, and they're not from the U.S. Maybe they can chime in on what they think is going on in other countries. But
My understanding
yeah,
is that, I mean, obviously, by other countries, I think you mostly are talking about Europe.
well, no, I
Um,
meant anywhere.
well, because there are, I think there are some really big uh, regional differences that make Europe and the United States special and specific.
Okay,
So, Europe, it is very easy to move between different countries and get a different job. In the
yeah,
United States, it is very easy to move between states and get a
and get
different
a
job.
job.
And both Europe and the United States is very large. There is quite a difference between California and Arizona and Maine, right?
Yeah,
So,
but okay, but I was
so,
also
so the,
interested in maybe what was happening in, I mean, there's other, India is a
yeah,
large
India is
country,
also
and
large, and that's something I
China is a large
don't have
country, and I
as
don't
much
have any of
information
that
for.
data. Okay, all
But if
right,
you are in, let's just say, if you're in Israel, for
yeah,
example, just to pick a random country, it's a relatively small country,
but there are a lot
and
of jobs, and people might be switching. I don't know.
oh yes, people very much might be switching jobs. I'm not saying they're not,
That's what I was kind of
but the
curious
I
about.
am just gonna move cities. Like I can't work at my job anymore because I've moved to 1,000 miles
Yeah, yeah,
away.
yeah.
I think that it's a little more
That
common
happens in some
in
places, maybe.
Europe and the United States because of the
Gotcha.
ease of movement.
Okay.
But I am again, this is a little bit of speculation on my part.
Okay. So, all right. So, if we talk about all this switching around, right? And actually, I'm not sure where to go next with this. Do you want to talk? I'm going to let you choose. Do you want to talk about uh, the idea of if you are an employer and you don't want people, you're hoping to retain the people you have and not lose them. Do you want to talk about that? Or do you want to talk about,
Let's stick with on from an employee perspective.
you want to do an employee perspective?
No,
Okay.
let's stick with it, and then we
For
can
a
work our
while.
way
Okay.
backwards
All
with
right.
employer.
So then my question is, I
This is,
guess,
can I just say, this is the intersection between microeconomics and macroeconomics. So this is a very common trend in labor, in the way you'd analyze labor economic situations, is you figure out the variables and functions for a single person
Yeah.
And then you work your way backwards to discover the macro effects.
Really?
That's
It's
sort
not that
of
usually, is it usually done that way? Micro to macro?
that is what the Nobel Prizes go out for these days. So
I didn't know that. Okay.
yes, right. So well, so but it makes sense, right? Macro trends are only a result of micro decisions.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna challenge you on that. I'm gonna challenge you on that. People are switching. I mean, we don't know exactly why, but we could posit that one reason that people are switching is that there are a lot of opportunities and they are being approached. I mean, how many people, I know a lot of people that are being approached by other people, friends, especially recruiters, about positions that they have open. But, if you think about why are there all these positions open, right? You could talk about the whole, well, because of the pandemic, the government infused a ton of money
Well,
into
but
the system. I mean, that would all be at a macro level.
no, 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 no. I'm just talking about. Ah, man, I really don't want to get into this. I'll
Okay,
just
don't,
say,
don't, don't.
imagine there's a trillion job openings.
Yes.
It only matters if individual people are making the decision to leave,
Okay. All right.
right?
I
So
That's
so
fine.
all
That's
all
fine.
the changes are actually driven by one decision at a time,
Okay.
and so you
So,
compile those
do
together.
you want to?
We're doing a terrible job
Did
at
you?
explaining.
Did
But
you
let's stick with individual
All
people.
right? Stick with the individual.
Why
So,
do people leave their job?
why do people leave their job?
Okay.
Are you asking me?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, right? There are a lot
Yeah.
of, you could say variables. There are a lot of things.
Well,
The
okay. Let's talk about them.
And let's talk about them from a human psychology perspective because
Okay.
that's let's move away from the economics.
Okay. Do you want to go
Okay.
first? Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, no, we'll do sort of round robin here. So um I'll pick mental models.
Okay. Go ahead.
People have a mental model of what their life ought to be, of
Yes.
what their standard of living should be,
Yes.
about the type of work that they should be doing,
Yes.
whether that's and people will come up with all sorts of reasons why they, I need to be more creative in my job. I should be in charge. I have all of this experience. I should be a manager by now. I've been working here for forever.
Right. Right. Right.
There's a whole mental model aspect, but for whatever reason, um, people have a idea in mind of what the work is they should be doing, and if their work is not meeting that expectation, then they feel that there is a mismatch.
They're at the very least they're more, even if they don't go looking, they're very open then when someone approaches them. And I think you're right. And another way of thinking about this, because we talk about mental models a lot, but I also, we also talk about stories a lot, right? Self stories, the stories that people have about who they are and why they're doing what they're doing and so on. And I think that because of world events, and especially because of the pandemic and all the changes to work that's happened, and all the kind of existential thinking and that's made us all do, I think people's self stories have been changing. And when your self story changes, then you start to look at different aspects of your life and do that comparison, right? Wait a minute, is this why am I doing this? Does this match what I think of myself? A lot of this going on unconsciously, right? Not always consciously. So I think that all the changes in our work lives and in our personal lives and in our social lives that most people have gone through in the last couple of years is having an effect on that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think the whole idea of expectations, like you mentioned, people saying things like, "Wait a minute, at this point in my career, by now I should be doing this or that, right? I think
or,
that has a
or
huge effect.
or pay expectations.
All right. All right. Let's
I
talk
know how
about
much
the
money our
elephant in the
department
room.
is bringing the company every month, right? Like we bring
Yeah.
in $5 million in revenue every whatever, and they're paying us how much? Like we're like, I run the studio. I'm doing, like, without me, this whole thing would fall apart. Why am I not being compensated, fairly? Just some more statistics. Hires and um, uh, job openings and quits are at all-time highs.
Yeah.
So you can continue. I'll see if I can't find this graph for everyone.
Well, and I think the money part is interesting. There's a book called Drive. Um, oh. And as soon as I said that, I forgot who the author is. So I know who this author is. So give me a second and I'm going to look it up so I can get this right. Daniel Pink. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I love this book. It's called Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. And one of my favorite books on motivation. And, he talks in there about the fact that, money, because I think we often tend, or at least when he wrote this book, which was a while ago, I think that he wrote it, we tend to think about jobs and automatically, jump. He wrote it in 2009, and automatically jump to, money. Well, that's what motivates people, and absolutely, money is a really important equation, right? Because there are a lot of jobs available, and because there's a lot of moving around going on, there's money at stake. And I think I know a lot of the people I know that have been interested in taking a new job. One big reason for it is that they were offered a lot more money. Daniel Pink in that book Drive talks about other factors besides money, and I want to get to those because I think those are really important. And Guthrie, you kind of alluded to them before, because you were talking about the whole mental model and am I being appreciated, and so on. And you just put, for those of you who, some of you are just listening to this podcast and you're not going to be able to see this, but for those of you who are watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube, Guthrie just put up this crazy graph.
This is from the Calculated Risk blog, my
All
favorite
right.
economics blog, for
And
sure.
what did you want to point out on this?
This is a lot going on here. This is from January 01 to January 2023.
Wow. So this is 23
20
years of
years.
data. 20
Yep.
years of data. Okay.
The blue indicates people quits.
The dark blue line or the blue
No,
solid area
I'm
at
starting
the
from the
bottom?
bottom and moving up.
All
So
right.
the solid light blue is quits.
Is
People who have
quits.
quits. People
So
who
we
quit.
can see that.
Well, just hold on.
Yeah.
The red bar stacked on top of it is layoffs, discharges, and other people leaving.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
So you stack those two together. That's the number of people who are leaving their job.
Whether
Together,
they quit
for
or were
whatever
laid
reason.
off or whatever. Okay.
But then it breaks it down by reason. Okay. So
Uh,
that's one part of the graph.
yeah.
The yellow line here is the number of job openings.
Wow. Look at that yellow line.
I should just say in 2000 and we'll just say 5, okay, there were 4 million job openings, dipped to about 2 million.
Is this in the U.S.?
Yes, in about 2009, Great Recession time. It's currently at 11 million. So we've seen
Wow.
just an explosion in job openings. And then of course the blue line is hires. So the number of people who are being hired at
Under
any
the
time.
purplish blue line.
Yeah, so as long as we ignore the strange bounce from the pandemic, hires and quits and job openings are at basically all-time highs, and layoffs,
Right.
discharges, and other are at all-time lows, at least in this
Right.
20-year timeline. One other thing I will add is that it's really interesting when it's very, very rare that there are more job openings than hires.
Yeah.
That's
Which we
traditionally
have a
not
huge, and right
true.
now we have a huge discrepancy.
Yes. You know, usually people get hired even if there's not a job opening posted, if that makes sense, right? Your
Yeah.
you know, friends or hey, we're just going to hire someone. So people are getting
Right.
hired without posting jobs officially. So
Yeah.
if the number of listed job openings is higher than the number of hires, that's an indication that, of course, the number of that there's a they're having trouble filling the roles.
Okay. All right. Can we,
So, but I
can,
should just say, just one last thing: the number of
what?
job openings got really high in 2019, before the pandemic. So
Before the
there are
pandemic.
yes, there are factors at play here. Yeah, January 2019, you see 7 million job openings and only 5 million hires. So there is just
And
this.
then it plunged in the in that kind of beginning of the
Sure, the
pandemic.
pandemic did a lot of really weird
But
stuff.
then it shot back up.
Yeah, 13 million layoffs in March of 2020. It was a
Yeah,
really weird
yeah.
time. But there are, so my point is, I think there are trends happening that were happening before
Um,
the pandemic
Before the pandemic,
that
but they
I've been
just
keeping
got
an eye on.
exacerbated. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting to see. Okay.
Thank you.
Can we? I want to switch and talk about two things on the employer side. Is that okay? Or do you want to talk some more about the employee side?
I do. I want to talk just a little bit more about the employee side.
Okay. Go ahead.
So there is also a cultural difference when it comes to the workplace. And I think it's really, people really underestimate how important culture
Yes.
is. And there is a culture of work that people do not talk about very often, about what is expected, about what work is. Like, why do we spend most of our lives going to a different place where they pay us money to do tasks? That's just how society works. I mean, there's no reason it has to be that way. Um, there have been many times in our previous history where that wasn't the way. In fact, America was founded on a system which was a lot closer to like a guild system, where you worked at home, or maybe there was a collection of people who sort of worked together, or you had your own farm and you grew your own crops, and you know you did some odd jobs to make some money, but it's not like you had a job, right?
Yes.
It's not like you had a career. You were just living on the prairie. That's sort of what you did.
Yeah.
You know, and people who had jobs were specialists. Like, I'm a teacher, I'm a preacher, you know, I'm a blacksmith. But that was a small percentage. Of course, now everyone's like, well, you work. What do you do? What's this thing? But that there are other significant cultural aspects that I think people don't talk about very often. For example, you know, older generations had a lot more loyalty. Corporations had a lot more loyalty to their employers. But this idea that
To their
I work
employees.
for a company, sorry, employees, thank you. There was maybe a mental model of I work for a company. And in some strange way, I want to compare this to basketball, which is really because
Okay. I'm waiting to hear what
there's
that
been a
is.
shift in the last couple of years. So in the past, you used to cheer for your team.
Yes.
Okay, right? So like, why, like, who's your favorite to watch? You know, what basketball, you know, NBA do you watch?
Don't do this to me. Yeah.
And people would say, oh, I'm a fan of the Boston Celtics,
Right.
right? I'm a fan of the Chicago Bulls.
Right.
They're fans of the team.
That's
And
right.
that's still the case for sure. But what you see more and more, especially among younger people, is they're fans of players.
Hmm.
They're like, yeah, I'm a LeBron James fan. I like Luka Doncic. Like, so like they don't buy jerseys of the team. They buy jerseys of their favorite players. They follow their favorite players. They watch basketball games where their favorite players play. And when the players switch teams, which is happening more and more and more, they just switch
They
their allegiance.
switch. They go with the player.
They go with the players. And so I think it's an interesting analogy, because I think in the past there was maybe a thought of, I am a blacksmith and I work at Blacksmith and Co. And this is, you know, like, what do you do? I'm a blacksmith at Blacksmith and Co. And I think the big mental model change has been, I'm a blacksmith. And the idea that you work at a specific company, I think has maybe shifted, where it's like, no,
The whole thing has definitely shifted.
I
I mean,
go, I move, I go wherever I'm
uh,
needed.
I had a conversation yesterday with someone in which I said, because I've been around in the workforce a while, I've done a lot of hiring over the years, and I remember, let's say, in the even as recently as maybe around uh, 2004, 2005, when you were hiring and you were looking at resumes, you would see people who moved like every 2 years. And we would say to each other, wonder what's wrong with this person that they're doing all this moving around. And it was a red flag. And now it's almost like the opposite. Like you see someone who's been somewhere for 10 or 15 years, and you say, I wonder what's wrong with this person that they didn't go do other things. That has really been a huge shift, and I think it's a shift in everybody, not everybody's, but in many people's expectations and mental models of what a good work history is, and and so on. And you and I sometimes joke about individuals we know who we'll see on LinkedIn, and this was before all this recent switching happened. I mean, maybe the last 5 years, it'd be like, oh, there he goes again, and he's like staying at a place for a year because he's got, he's where he's at in his career and his skills. He's considered valuable, and he can do that trading up in terms of probably money, but also just in terms of role and impact, and just trying out different industries and so on. So yeah, I agree with you that whole mental model has changed. I do think it's a generational change, and I do think it came. A lot of it had to do with the Great Recession and the breaking of trust, with some of the large companies, with people who thought they were going to be there forever, and then they were often, it was often the mid and high level managers that got cut, and so I think that has all changed. I agree with you, and I think that expectations are very different. Um, I think you were bringing up this idea of the concept that you uh, go work for a company and you go to the company office, and I think that for many years that and not everybody's had that model, but many people did, and I think that there was a defining part of your life. I mean, you made decisions based on how long your commute was and how you commuted. And, the car you bought depended on the kind of commute you had. And then you had all these social relationships. And also, don't underestimate, we are creatures of habit. And so, we're used to going into the office. And when that changed, when so many people were not going into the office anymore because they were working from home because of COVID, I think that started to break down all of these mental models and all of these expectations. Um, and I think now the criteria, I think people are, um, you could say, well, is everyone ready to go back to the office? And I don't even know that it's a matter. I mean, a lot of people are, and a lot of people want to go back to the office, and some people don't want to go back to the office. But I don't even think that's what's important. I think it's that the model has changed. The model is broken. The model is not the same anymore. The whole mental model that's what work is not there. And whether you want to go work in an office or you don't want to go work in an office, suddenly the model is not set in stone anymore. And I think that has made people more willing to consider other options than perhaps they were before. Guthrie, you've put up another chart.
I've put up another chart. This is from Scott Granis. Um, so what this chart is it's
This goes
corporate.
from 1959
Yeah.
to 2019,
Yes.
pre-pandemic.
And it's
Okay.
corporate profits as a percentage of GDP.
Okay.
And I think that I'm trying to explain this. I have a cat. My
Yes.
cat is not very smart. In like my cat doesn't understand, economics or psychology.
Yes.
But my cat is very intuitive,
Okay.
right? Like knows the patterns, can identify, I'm, like when the gate closes, the cats sit up because they know they can recognize the footsteps of someone coming home. Like they know, okay, if this is going to happen, this means dinner's coming soon.
Yeah.
So like there's not necessarily like a logical understanding,
Yeah.
but there's like an emotional understanding of what's happening.
Yeah.
That's very accurate.
Okay.
I think um, so. What this chart shows is that for between the 60s and the 90s, um, the average corporate profits as a percentage of GDP were under 7%.
Yeah.
So if you think about all the, how much, what percentage of GDP is being grouped into corporate profits, again, so that's after everyone gets paid.
Yeah.
They were bopping around in the 4 to 6% range for most of that
Yeah.
line. It dipped over 7% here or there. Okay.
Yeah.
In the tech bubble in 98, 99, it
Yeah.
hit 7.5%. And then
Yeah.
you get the recession. Okay. It goes down. In 2005, before the Great Recession, it hits 9%,
Right.
the highest on this chart. Okay. Then there's the Great Recession and it resets. And then in 2014, it hits 10.5%.
Yeah.
And then it kind of settles down, but where it settles
It's
down
still
to is
quite high.
9%.
Right.
So this is before the pandemic, but it's probably continued on this trend. The percentage of corporate profits as a percentage of GDP is historically much higher than it's been, and I think employees can feel this. I think they can feel that the company is doing well and they're not sharing the profits with them. And I think it's called like I don't think people like understand it. Like I don't think people maybe have like the it's not like they understand it logically. It's not
But
it's like
but okay, but
but they
to
like feel
me,
like I'm not being paid appropriately for like the how great things are going.
okay, all
Something
right.
like that.
But of course, do they? Why would they think the next company is going to do it? They don't necessarily believe the next company will either. But they're in their particular situation, they may get offered a lot more money.
So I just wanted to bring this up. This was just this is a very suspicious graph because people start switching jobs a lot right
Yeah.
when you start getting this leap in corporate profits as a percent of GDP,
Yeah. Yeah.
starting in the mid 2000s and continuing it on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe I'm not saying it's a correlation and
Yeah.
causation
We
thing.
don't. Right.
We
Right.
don't
We don't
know,
know.
but it is, to me, it's a little suspicious.
All right. All
Um,
right.
let
Now.
let me just answer quickly your other question about
Yes.
job hopping, and I'm sorry
Yes.
for being wordy here. Um, Economists would call this a friction point,
Okay.
right? So like, if you want to change positions in a company, it's very hard because there's friction. That takes there has to be an impetus to
To
change,
move
to get a
for
promotion,
change.
to
Yes.
change a team, to do something else. Okay, and so normally corporate cultures are really stiff
Mm.
and they can't do it.
Mm.
So where do you have that break, that release of friction? It's when you change jobs,
Yeah. There you go.
and you get to have a new role. You get to get promoted. You get to,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
That I think
So
that's really significant, and
yeah, and so
because
I think people are treating the job changing as
yes.
to overcome the friction in most corporate environments.
Yeah, I mean, the status quo, and even if the inside a company they are recognizing that yes, we've got to, we're going to lose too many people. We better give some raises. Everything is probably going to be done because you're doing it to a lot of people, or you feel you need to. It's going to be done at a little bit, right? They're not going to be able to handle a lot of huge salary increases, but not just money. They just big changes and lots of promotions, like you say, right? These companies are just not going to make gigantic changes fast and all at once. So if you are an individual and you are looking for large changes, maybe I want a different role, I want a larger role, I want more impact, and I want more money, right? And I want more vacation time. If I'm an individual wanting all of these changes, you are absolutely right. The easiest path to get those changes is probably going to be to go somewhere else. So I think you're right. I think people are interested in change. I think people have been, that mental model's been changing and they've been reevaluating. And then you couple that with the fact that there is all these hires open that you showed on the other chart, then it's going to make it really easy for not everyone, but a lot of people to get some interesting offers and to make a jump. So I want to come back to the employer side.
Good.
Guthrie, if you are an employer, if you are you and I do a lot of work with UX teams, right? User experience teams. If you have a UX team in your company and you are the manager of the UX team and you don't want to lose any more people, is there anything that you can do to prevent losing people?
So yeah, we have this person is commented, flexibility and culture can trump money, and um, we we should acknowledge that sometimes money is not money.
Okay, Guthrie.
Okay.
Guthrie, the economist. I think I know where you're going with this,
There's
but
a
do you want to?
famous LeBron James quote where he says 2 points is not always 2 points.
Okay,
And
well, I get that. So, do you want to tell us what you mean by money is not money?
sometimes money is a substitute for status,
It's a
um,
substitute. Can be substitute for a
or
lot of things.
power, or
Status, power,
um, uh,
appreciation.
appreciation.
I think that's a big
Appreciation,
one.
right? So I have heard so many friends of mine, why did you leave? They shorted us on our bonuses this year. They they gave me a 1% raise, and I was eligible for 6% and they gave me 1%, and that was the last straw, and that's why I left. um, I was looked I was I should have been promoted. I got looked over for the promotion. They didn't promote me. That so often, a lot of people I know, that's sort of the straw on the back, and that is what pushes them to go look for a different job, is they didn't get a raise.
So,
And
and you're saying that it isn't necessarily the money, but the money might be a symbol of something else,
yeah,
like they're not sharing the profits with us, or they don't appreciate my work, or I'm not sure I have a future anymore at this company.
I don't want to
um,
be stuck in the same
I
job
don't want to
for
be stuck
forever.
here. So in that way, all of these things are not necessarily what they seem. So it's not just money, but you know, one of the things I talk a lot about is the feeling of progress. Right?
Huge. It's
People
huge.
need to feel that they're making progress, that they're moving forward, um, and that might be money, but it might be your title or your job role or the amount of responsibility you have, or the types of projects you get to work on, or
But a real, and I think too often in the corporate world, there's this sense that really, really small changes are adequate, and they're not. So like if you really want to um, make people feel like they're making progress, there really does have to be real progress. You know, they have to have a totally different day to day. Like they have to be getting 30% more salary.
but how
Like
do
a
you
one and a
know
half percent
how
raise
how
is
do,
not
all
going to
right,
feel
so
different.
whether, I mean, whether a company can do that, whether they can do it with everybody is one question. But even putting that aside, how do you know as a company how much is enough? You're saying you can't just do this in tiny little increments right now. That's not going to, people will not feel that they're appreciated enough. They will not feel that
Well, you
they're
talked
making
about
progress.
making progress, right? You have to, there has to actually be a material difference for
How
them
do
to
I
feel.
know as a company, as this UX team manager, how do I know? I'm going to go to my manager and I'm going to say, we can't afford to lose more people. It's going to be extremely expensive
It's really
to
expensive.
well, no, but I'm saying it's going to
It's
be
really
really
expensive.
expensive to try and replace them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's take that amount of time and effort and money, and let's, you know, do some things here. But how do you know how much is going to be enough?
Well, you okay? So there are a couple things. The first part is managers are put in a really tough situation because they're told by their manager, "Here's your budget for your team.
You can get, you can, on average, you have this
Good
much you
luck."
can give in salaries. It's a total
Yeah,
of twenty five
yeah.
thousand
You
dollars,
get
and you get to
2%
apportion
for
it.
raises or whatever, right? And they're
Yeah.
trying to make the best of what they can do. So that's part of the hard time. Part of the hard part is middle managers are squeezed by upper
Yes.
management,
Yes.
and so it's not always up to them, and so then they're trying, right? It's not necessarily their fault, but there's only
Yes.
so much they can do. That's part one. Part two is I totally agree that when people leave, it's really, really, really expensive. Uh, Companies do not realize how expensive someone leaving is. It's really expensive to find a replacement,
It's
especially a
going to
good
cost,
replacement.
and you're probably going to have to pay more for the person,
The replacement.
new person.
The When recessions happen, there's a concept I'd like to talk about very briefly called institutional memory.
Yeah.
And it's really important. So when the recessions happen, a lot of like the goal of top economists is to retain institutional memory because it's so expensive. I have a friend who works in a very sort of customized industry where it's a small company. Like no one knows how to do the things that they can do. Like there's weird systems and processes and like where are the things stored in the
Absolutely.
storage.
This happens in big companies as well,
And yeah, and like you can't just replace that.
Yes.
If everyone gets laid off, you can't just rebuild these systems because the systems, it's not like a piece of machinery. You can't just buy a new one. You have to
Right. I
basically
think
start from scratch.
institutional memory is a very big deal, and
Very
the
valuable.
costs of, yes, very valuable.
So yeah, so when you lose that, it's really expensive.
So
Okay.
then what do you do?
Well, okay, there's a couple different ways, and we're gonna take it out of the hands of middle management because like I said,
Okay.
sometimes their hands are tied. There's only
Yes.
so much you can do on the margins to make your teammates feel that they are, you know, appreciated. You know,
Yeah.
um, so a couple things. The first is figure out what actually motivates people because it's a spectrum.
You
Not
mean what
everyone is the
motivates
same.
the particular people on your team?
Yeah, right. Like so we did some user testing for a company once, for lower level positions. And what motivates them? Is it to make more money? Is it to blah blah blah? And it's like people hate this job and they want to switch jobs. That's what motivates them to do a good job, so they don't have to do it
They
anymore.
wanted, yeah, it was a really interesting piece of
It's
research
fun.
we did. They wanted to stay with the company,
Right.
but they were in kind of an entry level job. They knew it was entry level, and their goal was to get out of that entry level and into another job. And the company we were working with, they were trying to put in place these little increase. Oh, let's give a commission on this and the commission on that, assuming that these little, and these were small little bits of extra money would motivate them. And what we found out was, yeah, the money's great. That's not what I care about. What I care about is what can I do to get out of here and
And
move
being
on
like
to
a
another
top
job.
salesperson, which would get the perks, like they were seeing an association between getting
Was
the
not
perks.
going to get them out.
Well, no, 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 it would,
Yeah,
because that's who got out, was
if
like the
they
people who
saw
were
that.
successful, right?
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah,
how can I show that I'm successful so I can transfer out to more senior
yeah,
position.
yeah.
So knowing what actually motivates people is very important. So if
Yes,
there's a person who's like, I want to lead a project,
right.
right? Well,
Yep.
okay, figure out how to get them to lead a project. If there's someone who does want who's money motivated, whether it's because of status or whatnot, like figure out a way for them to be able to make more money. I mean, it's not in
If
some
they
ways
if
it's actually really simple.
if they
Figure
don't
out,
want to come back to the office
I don't
every
want to,
day, they'll
right,
come back
I want to
twice
spend more
a
time with my
week, but
kids.
I like not commuting. I want to work from home. Even when you call everyone back, I don't, I'll come in twice a week. Um,
Mhm.
I want more time off, more
Yeah.
vacation, or
Yep.
the ability to take more time off. Yeah, I think it's, here's what I think. I think if you I agree with you. You've got to, so it's got to be a small group thing, an individual thing. You have to know and ask people what's important to them, so you know what's going to motivate them. And there's no easy fix for this, and it's going to take a lot of time on your part to figure it out, and it's going to take a lot of money. I mean, it just is. Um, so if you, and that money meaning, it might not be just salary. I mean, there's money. If people take more time off, then you have to pay other people. um, i I think it's not going to be easy, but I think you've to just throw up your hands and say it's too difficult. We can't figure this out. We just won't do anything. You can take that road, but then what? But ultimately, you are going to spend as much or more time and money because you're going to have to figure out how to get the work done. You're going to have to replace those people. I mean, there's just no, there's not an easy way to do this. But I think you've got to dig in, and I think you also should not put the phrase "what stick your head in the sand" and say, "Oh well, it's not gonna happen here." I know there's a lot of switching going on, but people here, they like being here, and they may like being here, but you need to know everybody, especially if we're talking about in the field of UX and the kind of work our clients are in. They are all being recruited really heavily. Just assume that they are, and try to be as flexible as you can. Uh, Being rigid right now is going to hurt you in the long run. If you say, um, everybody must come back to the office 5 days a week. Uh, the,
Depends on who the people are and what they're
right,
motivated to do.
but I'm just saying, for some people that might be a deal breaker. So just be
So
willing to be flexible.
um, another way that you can do this is to ins- institutionalize, uh, what Linda, who just wrote a comment, that self actualization, institutionalize the progress of moving up. So
Yes.
we have that. Yeah, for the contractors we have, not even employees, just contractors. We have a tier system, and if you're a college, if you're basically just in college or blah blah blah, you're tier one, and it goes up to tier five or whatever. And each tier has is a very big pay increase, and you get to do more interesting work. And there's you get to tier two or three, and you get to start talking to clients directly and giving presentations. And we try to have people grow their skills so that they can increase the tier. Now that's good for us, because if we have contractors who are growing and their tier goes up, we get to bill higher rates. So it all works out. The client is happy because they're getting higher skilled people. But keeping that cadence going is important, and especially in the early levels, it's important to jump up tiers. Like, if you're in tier one, it should only take 2-3 years to get to tier two. And if you're in tier two, it should get, I don't know, 3 to 5 years to get to tier three. And you should be making twice as much money once you get to tier three as tier one, or 3 times as much money. So these jumps really, really should feel like jumps, and they should feel like big changes. And if there's a way that you can sort of figure out how to do that, to really make people feel that they're like really growing, that's I think that's important. Um, and a part of that is just paying people a lot more. Even if their job title doesn't change, if you slap a senior on it and you give them a 20% pay raise, they will feel appreciated, even if they're doing the exact same work. And I really do think it's a lot about feeling appreciated, feeling like they're part of the family, feeling like, hey, they want me to stay. They are doing everything that they can to get me to stay here. And I think it's that feeling more than anything that's really important. And sometimes, yes, some big rich company will come along and offer a bundle of money, and the person just can't turn it down, and that'll happen from time to time. But there's a lot of people I know who are, we'll just say, actively applying elsewhere. After they feel that they were looked over, after they feel like their boss just doesn't think they do very much. I've had so many friends tell me, if I left, everything would just fall apart. I've had many multiple friends tell me, like, I basically keep the entire place running,
And it doesn't even matter if
and
that's true or
they
not.
didn't give me a raise
But
for
it
the
doesn't
second year
matter
of
if
it.
that's true or not. The fact that they feel that way means that they are much more likely to jump.
Yeah, so
So,
they feel like they're doing all this stuff to keep the lights on, and that the company's like, leave, we don't care, stay, whatever. And so they're like, fine, I will leave.
or even if they don't feel that, even if they, I mean, I know some people who, I don't think they would say their company is saying, oh, we don't care, leave or stay, we don't care. But for a lot of people, they feel like their manager, or their group is saying to them, we do appreciate you, but we're not in we I wish we could, right? I wish we could give you a different, I wish we could promote you. I wish we could give you more money, but we can't. And it's back to that rigidity. I think a lot of well-meaning companies do have, for probably good reasons, these policies in place about what it takes to get promoted and what it takes to go to the next level. And I think what we're saying, Guthrie, is if you don't want to lose a lot of people, rethink that, and at least for now consider doing some radically different things. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to lose people now. And we're almost
No,
out of
we
time,
started late. We can go a little longer.
but I want to say one other thing, which is that flip side of this is, um, even if you did all the things we're saying you should do, even if you really did some research and found out what the individuals on your team want and need to feel like they're making progress, to feel like they're moving forward, to feel that they're appreciated. Even if you did that, you are going to lose some people. The chances are. And so just if there's anything you can do to get ready for that, to prepare for that, if you're not used to having to um, always be, recruiting, always be um, uh, looking for new people, bringing in recent graduates, um, deal paying attention to your whole onboarding, because you may have to do it, and you may have to do it more than you're used to. And do you have good onboarding? Paying attention to your institutional memory. Okay, what if you did lose X percent of your current team? How, are you prepared for that? What's your infrastructure like for the things you need to be captured and remembered? I would suggest you spend some time and energy on that as well. I don't think there's any way to get through all of this turmoil without having to invest time and money one way or the other.
So, by the way, if people have questions, I know when people are watching. If people have questions, they can write it in the chat either on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'll
Yeah,
maybe we'll maybe we'll maybe answer some of them.
we've had
Um,
some good
there
comments.
is one other thing I want to add, which is
Yes.
we've been assuming that companies are good actors. There's a lot of bad actors, and I'll
All
tell
right.
two
Well,
quick
what are
stories.
the bad actors
These are
doing?
two real stories that I have heard from friends of mine.
What?
One was I had a friend who was on a team, and um, there was someone on the team that everyone else did not like,
Yeah.
and there was a promotion, and the
Yeah.
manager promoted that person, the worst performing person, just to
Why?
get them out, so that they didn't have to deal with them anymore.
Oh, well, that happens all the
Yep.
time. There's a
And when
name
the
for that.
person, my friend, found out from the manager that yeah,
Oh
we looked
yeah.
you over for the promotion because I just
We
didn't
needed
want
to get
them to
rid
think
of this guy.
just he was so over it. He was so over it.
Okay. Do you know there's a name for that?
Yes, there is. I couldn't remember the
The
something effect.
Peter principle.
Peter principle. Is that
I
what it
mean,
is?
I don't know where the name comes from. And that's been around forever. I
Ever.
remember seeing that a long time ago. There was a company I worked at, my first big corporate job ever, a very long time ago, in Boston. And that was just a well known fact. It was like you would have someone in your department who wasn't any good, was obnoxious, or just didn't do good work. And the easiest way to get rid of them is encourage them to apply for a promotion in another department, and then give them a great recommendation, and so that you could get rid of them. And so what ends up happening is these not good people rise to the top
Yeah, they
of the
fail forward,
management
right?
structure. And so now you have a corporation where everyone at the top is
Because the
pretty
people
much
who are
not
good
very
at their
good.
jobs, they can't afford to
Right.
actually
And this would
maybe.
actually happen. The people that were good would
Of
not
course.
get a good recommendation from their manager because they didn't want to lose them. It was just a terrible corporate culture. I'm telling you,
Okay, so
that was the
that's one.
worst.
I'll
Yeah.
tell you another story
What?
on a big policy. Big company who had a lot of corporate wide incentives. So if the company does really well, they give these big bonuses, 5, 6,
Yeah.
8%
Yeah.
at the end of the year, the fiscal year. And this company, whose name I will not name,
Okay.
like the day before the fiscal year closes, 'cause they had a good year, takes a huge accounting loss for some
Yes, of
reason.
course. So that
We're
they
going to
didn't have a good
defer the
year.
revenue
Yeah,
from
right.
something, and it was just enough to get it under the threshold, so they didn't have to give
Have to pay
bonuses
the
to their
bonuses. Yeah.
employees.
Okay. So yeah,
Right?
if
Like,
yeah,
okay,
if
so
you
like if you're
do,
going to do that kind of crap, what are we doing?
people are gonna go take
Right?
another job.
You know,
Yes.
how am I supposed to feel appreciated when literally upper
Some
management is
companies
scheming to keep money out of the hands of their
some
employees?
companies are not interested in keeping people and not interested in having people feel appreciated, and that's just the way it is.
Well, but they
So
never say that.
No, but if one, it's true. Some companies are like that.
All the
All
companies are
right.
like, we love you. We take care of our employees.
Well, they say that, but they
Yeah,
don't
they say that.
necessarily mean it. All right, Guthrie. This topic was a little different than our usual topics,
Okay.
but I just had it on the top of my mind. I'm glad we talked about it.
Should talk about like
Can't.
nachos next time or something.
No, we're not. We could, I guess, but what we probably have some announcements we need to make. I know I have some. Do you have some?
We might be in Europe in October and November.
We might be in Europe in October and November, which is so exciting because it's been so long since we've been anywhere. So if you are in Europe and or the UK and
Wants
you
to
are
do a
in
workshop.
and you want us to do a workshop or
Get in
speak at your
touch.
event, please reach out to us because we like to bundle these together. So when we travel over there, we like to see if we can put together a bundle of things. So let us know if you're interested, if you might want to host us for a workshop or a talk. That's one thing. Another thing is we've been having a bunch of planning meetings, and so we are booking workshops um, uh, on various topics. So if you not just over in Europe, but in the U.S., especially if you're interested, either in person or virtual, we're planning out our teaching schedule for the rest of 2022. So if you think you might be interested in having us give a workshop, please reach out for that or speaking. I know there's conferences are kind of getting back up. Some of them in person, maybe for the fall. Um, let's see. I wanted to also mention um, that. Uh, well, no, maybe that's it. Do we have any others that you can think of? Things, announcements? I guess that's enough. Huh? If you have questions or comments, the best way to reach us is
info@theteamw.com.
info@theteamw.com. And if you have ideas about things you'd like us to tackle in the podcasts, let us know. This podcast is available on LinkedIn Live. It's available on YouTube, streams live on YouTube, and is also available as an audio podcast. It's called Human Space Tech, at any of the
Again, if
places.
you're listening to this, you already know.
Yeah, but you might not know that you could listen on
That's true. If someone
your
shares it,
podcast platform.
yes, if someone shares it, then you would know.
Guthrie, thanks so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for the comments that you left and so on.
Okay.
And we'll see you next time. We're on every Wednesday, noon Central Time.
CST.
Bye.
Well.